Is that former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright, who's now chair of the Albright Group, which counts among its ranks a Mount Holyoke graduate, Suzanne George, said recently at the fall 2009 California Women's Conference in Long Beach, California, there should be a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. So I'm here hoping to avoid the special place in hell. As Andrea mentioned in her introduction, I'm the CFO at the Warhol Foundation, and I can honestly say that it's the best gig that I've ever had. And the reason for that is that we're surrounded by art all day, every day, and what's better than art? And I learn something new almost every week, and we get to give money away, which is a really, really beautiful thing. Some days it's work, but most of the time it's really, really pure joy. And if one were to take a look at just the names of the employers on my resume, your first thought would probably be, what the hell? And if not, your second thought would probably be, in borrowing from Sesame Street, all of these things are not like the others. In my 25-year career, I've had 6 employers: the Children's Study Home, the Fine Arts Center, NASA, Burson Marsteller, Skyron, and now the Andy Warhol Foundation for the Visual Arts. And you might ask yourself, well, where's the thread? The thread in all of this is not the type of entity. I've worked in both for state and federal government, for nonprofit organizations, and also for profit companies. But the thread has been finance. And I actually came to finance relatively late in my college career. I had a professor at Mount Holyoke, his name was Harriet Polachek, and I actually sat on a committee with her, the winter term committee. I didn't want to go anywhere near calculus, having had really horrible experiences with math in high school, and I just wanted to avoid the whole thing. So I met Harriet, and she kept asking me, why haven't I seen you in the math department? Well, Harriet, because I want to be as far away from the math department as I possibly can. Really the engine that drives most entities, whether it's a government entity, a company, a nonprofit, a household. Andrea pointed out that for many American households, it's actually the women who are driving the finance engine. Even communes have some interest in the financial health of the commune. Couples have an interest, individuals have an interest in finance. Finance affects every part of my day, and I'm sure it affects every part of your day as well. You're negotiating the mortgage, you're asking for a raise. These are really New York centric, and I apologize, but eating in or taking out, subway or taxi, Netflix or Cineplex, babysitter or grandma. The bottom line is you can't be afraid of it, and you should really get very comfortable with finance in your everyday life. Do many of the things that Geraldine was talking about. And in terms of my career in finance, there are 5 things that I think everybody in this room really needs to do that can really help you with your financial decision making, be it for professional or personal reasons. And those 5 things are, and I'll come back and give you an example, both professional and personal, of my own experience in these 5 areas. The first one is get outside of your comfort zone. That's really, really important. The second one is find a mentor. Geraldine was talking about finding somebody that you trust. The third is trusting your gut. How many people in this room, when they read about Madoff, said, what were people doing? Why was the auditor was a guy in Connecticut. How is it possible that for 30 years, this guy manufactured statements that had no basis in reality, produced audited financial statements that had no basis in reality, convinced SEC examiners that all was right with the world? The most sophisticated investors in the world got taken by this guy. So I understand why people in this room might be sort of afraid. Maybe this person's going to take every last cent that I have, and I'm going to end up like some of these Madoff people. So trust your gut. I'd be willing to bet that if we talk to 95% of the Madoff investors, there was some point where they thought there's something not right. The emperor has no clothes. But they did not trust their gut. The fourth thing is learn to love negotiating. That, for me, is absolutely the bottom line, whether it's negotiating with a bank, whether it's negotiating with an employer, whether it's negotiating to buy a new car, a piece of furniture, negotiating with your spouse or significant other as to a major purchase. It's really important that you learn to love that and that you really develop that as a skill. The fifth thing, you're going to think this is bizarre, but I want you to have fun, because this shouldn't be scary, it should be fun. So in terms of getting outside of your comfort zone, I'll give you two examples. One is professional, the other is personal. When I went to work at NASA, the only thing that I knew about the space program was one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind. That and the MTV logo, which actually is based on a Warhol work. I bet you didn't know that. I wasn't a physicist or an engineer in this hugely scientific, hugely engineering organization. I was a civilian in a very military culture. I was a female in a testosterone-charged environment. Oh boy, that was fun. I was young in a culture that valued graybeards. I had to learn to round to the nearest $100,000. I like to balance my checkbook to the penny. That was hard to learn. And so I was really in the outer space of my comfort zone. But it quickly became, the comfort zone quickly expanded once I realized that I was this, I could do the work, and that despite the fact that I wasn't all of these things in this world, there was still a place for me. I'm a person who, in my 40s, has come to enjoy marathoning. I know it's crazy, but it's true. And when I decided to do my first New York City marathon, I was really way outside of my comfort zone. I weighed 330 pounds and had had 3 heart attacks. And I'm not kidding. One of the things that I decided to do really speaks to the next point, and actually both of the experience that I've just told you about convinced me of the wisdom of the second point, and that's find a mentor. And it can be a mentor for financial things, it can be a mentor for professional things, but just find a mentor, somebody you trust. At NASA, I actively sought out a female senior executive as a mentor, and she proved to be an excellent sounding board, a shoulder to cry on, a drinking buddy, a resume reviewer when I started looking for other opportunities, and a really great networking source. And most importantly, she knew what it took to be successful in the man's world that was and is still NASA. And she was willing to share that knowledge with me. So going back to what Madeleine Albright said, remember the special place in hell. If a woman asks you for help, please don't say no. We're all busy, but just as Andrea emailed me, if someone emails you and says, I'm looking for particular expertise, and you have that particular expertise, please don't say no. With regard to the marathon, I shared my goal with my female cardiologist, who has this amazing network of people. And she was somebody who espouses the Madeleine Albright ideal, and so she didn't say no to me. And she provided me with a really terrific resource, a nutritionist, and a trainer. And Gail not only helped me train for the marathon, she also did the last 10 miles of my first New York Marathon with me. And I would not have gotten through that without her. And you might say, well, what does that have to do with finance? Well, again, the point is find a mentor. And I think for finance, it's especially important because if it's something that you're not quite sure of, if you don't have the confidence that Geraldine was talking about, it's really important to find somebody who will help you get that confidence. My third point is trust your gut. And again, a professional example, I went from NASA in Washington, D.C. to a very large PR firm in New York called Burson Marsteller. And at Burson, I was the right hand to the chief financial officer. And within my first month, I knew part of my responsibility was consolidating all of the worldwide results. And within the first month that I was there,